Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Wow Factor here at the Comic Wow Studios in Timonium, Maryland. I'm your host Rick, and I've got Matt Stagmer from Baltimore Knife and Sword, but you guys might know him from another show called Man at Arms.
It's just a little show.
Just a little show. Thanks for coming out, Matt.
Absolutely, man. I've wanted to come for a long time, so glad I get to finally do
Finally.
this.
We saw each other at San Diego Comic-Con on the way back.
Yeah, at the airport.
At the airport. I was like,
hey, Matt.
Hey, buddy.
So.
And then we kind of had some dialogue, and been wanting to get him out here since then. And though we are both very busy, I know you're extremely busy with the show and everything else going on with Baltimore Knife and Sword. But we knew we would get together and make some magic happen.
Yeah, especially get a good break from the cold weather today.
Right.
Shout out to my boys still at the shop working. I left.
Yes. So let's just get right into it. I mentioned Baltimore Knife and Sword, and that is the shop, as you call it, and where the forge is and everything. Mm-hmm. Where did that all start? How did that all come to being?
Well, Carrie's obviously 19 years older than me, so he's been doing it for a long time. And as a kid, he used to make me like helmets for Christmas and swords and all kinds of stuff. I mean, at a young age, so I kind of grew up in that whole realm with him already doing it. I grew up at the Maryland Renaissance Festival, so I always had a love for that stuff. I was always around weapons, but I didn't really start doing much at all. I mean, I made my first knife when I was in like 8th grade, but I really didn't think I'd ever be a sword maker, blacksmith, whatever you want to call it. But when I was 15 years old in high school, I needed a job, and my mom pretty much forced me to go out looking for one. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do something, I'd love to go work with Carrie. And I started there. I used to just sweep the floors, clean up rusty armor. By the time I'd clean up the whole pile, I'd have to start back over because it was all rusty again, because Carrie's shop at the time was in the basement of the Owella Mill over in Ellicott City. So it was very moist down there. So every time you clean something up, it would get rusty. So I kind of just did a lot of that, but I have a huge art background and took all the tech ed classes I possibly could in high school. And kind of immediately just, even if it was when Carrie or the other craftsmen were had their backs turned, I would jump in and do something. And I just immediately picked it up and loved it. I loved the stock removal, the grinding. You're basically sculpting in metal. And once again, it took me a long time to kind of embrace the fact this is what I was going to do for my life. I always thought of it as kind of like what I'm doing until I become an architect or, something else. The big computer rage was back then. So I went and got my A+, Net Plus certification and all that. Thought I'd do that stuff. Thankfully, I didn't. But I committed to Carrie full time, around like 2003 probably. Like not just committed to him, just was like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. Right. And it's just a never-ending, process of learning new things, and it's amazing what we did. I mean, we started just at the Maryland Renaissance Festival, like I said, and now we're well over 75 different shows.
So as far as Renfest, because that's one of the things I wanted to talk about is you mentioned that the Maryland Renaissance Festival is kind of where it all started, and now you're all over the United States. I'm guessing probably the world. You send stuff all over the place. Now, that is truly what the business is. Yeah,
our primary business is stage combat weaponry, which means if you go to a Ren Fair and you see a jouster, they're using a blunt sword that's safe to use. It has to be constructed very solidly. It can't break. It needs to ring. It needs to sound flamboyant. It needs to look like a sword or an axe or whatever it is from very far away. And that's what we've done. That's what Carrie started the business as, and that's what we continue to do. Right. Now, don't get me wrong. We do a lot of custom, high-end stuff, forged weaponry. But the basis of the business is stage combat weaponry. If you're familiar with Disney's Aladdin on Broadway, we make all the aluminum swords for that, for all the shows, not just here in New York, but all the different shows all around the world. So stuff like that, that's our bread and butter for sure.
So how does one go about, pitching your product to someone like Disney? I mean, that's a big deal.
There's just not too many people doing it, to be perfectly honest. We've worked with different guys from the SAFD, which is the Society of American Fight Directors, for years and years and years. I mean, like I said, Baltimore Sword's been around for 30 plus years, so we just have those kind of connections of making solid stuff. And when some of those fight directors that may have used to been just little fight kids are now older, they grew up using our stuff. So now when they get these big choreography jobs for these big, things like Disney, they say, call Matt, call Carrie. So it's a lot of word of mouth. Obviously, we have a big Facebook and social media presence before even Man at Arms or any of that stuff happened. So we put ourselves out there, but it's a lot of word of mouth, really. It's this day and age, you make a quality product, no matter what it is, you're going to get noticed because there's just not that many quality things made out there these days.
You're right, absolutely. Especially when you think about weapons and stuff. Sure, there's a lot of replicas made, and not to bust on anybody that manufactures replica stuff, but if it's not, it doesn't say Pakistan on it.
Yeah.
You hope that it's American made.
That's the thing is, in the sword industry, I mean, it's just overwhelming how many bad swords there are.
Sure.
And you're sure they may look really cool, but they're just bad and they're really unsafe to use on stage. So, that's one of the things Carrie kind of devoted his early part of his life to, was just educating people not to use these things. They're not safe. Their blades are going to break. They can fly into the crowd. They can hurt someone. So he really, before we started making things pretty, he learned how to make things solid, make it so they won't break. Went through tons of different materials of blade stock to figure out what's the toughest, and that's where we are now.
Right.
He put all that footwork in, and now we got a bunch of different really talented craftsmen making them pretty.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Ilya, who is just a phenomenal.
Oh, he's a freak.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
the stuff that guy can do.
He drives me crazy, but it's nice working with a guy that's really gung ho. Like there's nothing that really intimidates him.
Right.
He sees it. He's like, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Right.
We can do that. I can do it. He'll research it. He'll figure it out. So when you're working side by side with someone like that, it rubs off on you.
Right.
I mean, it does.
Yeah.
Carrie's always said little things like, I had to give myself permission to do it before I could do it.
Right.
But Ilya doesn't have that.
Okay.
He doesn't have that boundary.
Okay.
He just goes, yep, and just gets into it. You've seen some of the crazier things we forged on the show.
Right.
He didn't forge one of those before. Like he
Right.
just went at it and just figured it out. Like when we did the big crescent blade from League of Legends, Diana's crescent blade, he hadn't forged that kind of thing yet. He just did it.
That's crazy.
And it worked. And that's,
And it looked great.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it makes, working beside him, you got to step your game up just to look decent.
Sure.
But
absolutely.
Yeah, it's been a great addition to the shop, and he's a good friend too. He's a pretty good guy.
Now, you mentioned some of the conventions, like we met at. We met before San Diego.
Sure, absolutely.
But we saw each other again at San Diego, and you are now kind of into that scene. Man at Arms, and you guys are going to different conventions.
Yeah.
So, what about that scene are you finding enjoyable for you and the business?
Sure. We don't go there to sell anything.
Okay.
We just take items that we've made that we know the fans will like. Like if we go to an anime convention, we take primarily anime stuff, video game stuff, stuff like that. But really, that's where all the bruises and all the cut fingers and all that stuff really pays off. You get interacting with the fans. Now we get to interact with them on YouTube, which is pretty cool.
Sure.
But there's only so much you can do on a personal level.
Right.
But getting to meet these people, sometimes the show has like touched people's lives in different ways. Right. It's just amazing. But really getting to interact with the fans, and not only the fans that are pre-existing. Sometimes you meet someone and they just might be like, say I have the Dragon Ball Z sword, Trunks sword that we made. Might be a Dragon Ball Z fan that walks up, doesn't have any clue who we are. Says, wow, that's Trunks sword, notices it immediately. This is amazing. Like, wow, did you guys make this? And we go, yeah, we have a show, Man at Arms, and we're very humble. We talk to people. We're just there to talk. Like, we're not there to do anything else.
Right.
So we talk to them, blah, blah, blah. And that's on a Saturday. And then Sunday morning, they come up and go, holy moly, I went back to my hotel room and I binge-watched, you can't watch them all at this point, but I binge-watched your show. You guys are fantastic. And we made a new fan right there.
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
only just a fan, we made a friend. Like, those people a lot of times are, like, more introverted. A lot of times you see at conventions, and, you just see, like, they immediately are your friend, and they come up to you every con. They remember you. They ask you how you're doing. It's awesome. I mean, my fiance's best friend now is somebody that I met the first KatsuCon the first convention we ever did as Man-at-Arms, we met her. She was dressed as Sauron, like a femme lady Sauron, and we had her out for a build, and now they're best friends. They're gonna be, she's gonna be in our wedding.
That's
so
awesome.
It's like, a lot of friends like that. Jeff Rayer, like he's a mutual friend of ours. He came out for Shredder, and I've just known him through all the years doing different Star Wars things, and close friends. Like it's really about meeting people, connecting. We're not there to make a buck. We don't get paid to do it. We just love doing it. And Ilya really kind of came up with the idea, hey, let's do some of these conventions. And so we primarily just did anime conventions at first because that's truly his love. But yeah, the overwhelming best part about doing conventions is just meeting and greeting.
Well, I agree because I go to quite a few, and it is a lot of fun to just when someone recognizes you and you can say thank you. Yeah. Thank you for making it possible for me to do what I'm doing today.
Yeah, we can't do it without support of the fans.
Absolutely.
So showing them that you're there, you can see it touches people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You mentioned cosplayers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've had them on the show and made some friends with Jeff. We've had Jeff, for those of you that didn't know, we have had Jeff in studio here. Shot him as a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Out Jeff
he's a great dude. Possibly the best Dwalin cosplayer out there. Sure. It's ridiculous how much he looks like the actor and the character. So it's crazy. But you've used cosplayers on the show, like you've had Dale Harvey with the big 40K chainsaw thing.
Awesome.
And he had mentioned that thing was super heavy. He's like, I couldn't hold that thing up. And he's big like me. He's like 6'5", 400-pound guy. He's a monster. And he said I couldn't hold that up for longer than like 10 seconds at a time.
Yeah.
So when you're making these fan-based, and the fans are going to be the biggest critics when it comes to if they're a true anime fan. Yeah. What are some of the things that you guys take into account when building these anime swords, these video game swords? You know that they're going to be like trying to look as closely at that build.
Well, that's the thing is, one of the greatest honors of doing the show in general is we know that we're bringing at least someone's greatest, dream to life.
Right.
Like, that's the best. Like, yeah, sure, like, the Conan stuff, like, was already a sword. But bringing, like, the animated things to life, that's the greatest honor and the greatest challenge. We only have 8 film days to make 6 items. So there's some details that are always going to get left out. I'm sorry. It's just the truth. But we work really fast, and it's really important for us to please the fans as much as possible. Right. And not just in, the awesome thing about our shop is that we're all nerds, we're all geeks in some way. Like, I love gaming, I love DC, Marvel, like, I love comics, I love movies. Ilya's a big anime guy. Carrie's like an old school D&D player. Right. Rick and Bill both love, Games Workshop, stuff like that. Right. So we all have our own thing. So most of the time, most builds, one of us is going to be super passionate about it.
Sure.
But even if we're not, we know that the fans want to see that passion. So we put everything we have even into the simpler builds. Sure. Because it just has to be right.
Yeah.
Like I said, some of the details might get glossed over, but overall we do our absolute best to make it as right as possible. And, we're not going to please everybody, and we know it.
Right.
But on another note, say I'm not a fan of an anime sword, but we're making it. I'll try to find another way to show passion, which is maybe I'll research a new way to do a different grind on a sword.
Sure.
Or, hey, let's try making out of this material instead of just plasma cutting it. Let's forge it out of titanium like we did with the blade sword. Weird stuff like that to, say you might not be a fan of the blade genre, vampires and whatnot. I don't see how you're not, but say you're not. You might just appreciate how we got there, not necessarily the end product. So there's a lot of stuff like that. And like you said, how we've really embraced the cosplay culture. We're not hiring professional models.
Right.
We're going to conventions. I'm seeing someone or Ilya is seeing someone that we're like, wow, let's pull that person that they put a lot of effort. That might not be the best costume you've seen, but it's somebody that made it themselves and somebody that is a true fan of that. So we're not super fan builds on Man-at-Arms, but we're bringing those cosplayers are shaken most of the time when they're holding that thing because It's like made, put in their hands, go chop a watermelon. There's no time to, you know what I mean? There's no time in between. So it's kind of just an honor in that fact, just to be able to put this item in a super fan cosplayer's hand. And like I said, most of the time, these are people that we remain friends with. We might have them back multiple times. Michael Wilson, great friend of mine at this point. He's come out for Green Lantern. He was also, I don't know what else
he's done. Yeah, he's done
everything.
A lot. Yeah.
He was our Predator. He was originally we had him for a Predator. And honestly, there's a great thing. The Predator build that we did was we had so many big builds that season that kind of we didn't have enough time to really do as much on that as we wanted to. Having Michael Wilson as the Predator come in that episode, in my opinion, made that episode.
Right.
It was
he's
wow,
crazy good at
it. He, I'm banging on something. He comes up and there's Predator in the background. We had him peek around the corner. I was grinding a couple times. It made that episode.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about making the weapons. Sometimes it's about making a good episode, a fun episode, and getting to highlight not just our craftsmanship, but cosplayers as well.
And you guys have had the opportunity to meet some pretty influential industry folks too. I know you did a build when you speaking of the Conan sword, when you did that season, you did a Spawn build, and you got to meet Todd McFarlane. I mean, it's Todd McFarlane.
Wow, meeting Todd McFarlane, I was prepared for it,
sure.
But I didn't know how awesome of a person he would be.
Right.
I was a Spawn fan long time ago, way before the movie. My good friend Armand Kazemi in middle school, he collected all the Spawns. I mean, he had all the original comic books, and he got me into it. And I was just like, wow, this is really cool. And not just Spawn. I mean, Venom. I mean, Todd McFarlane is
done a lot.
I mean, if there's only
Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, he's just an amazing guy. On set, within the first few minutes of meeting him, he put my little toddler 2-year-old on his lap and drew a dinosaur with her.
Wow.
Boom.
Right.
Nobody asked him to do that. He just was like, boop, and just started drawing a dinosaur with her. And it was just like...
Right? It's Todd McFarlane.
My girlfriend at the time, and now fiance, Natasha, was just like... We were both just sitting there like, oh my God,
Yeah, the level of adorable.
I mean, I have a good cell phone video I'll show you after hours of when Natasha met her, and they met him, and just started crying uncontrollably. He was such a sweetheart about
That's
it.
That's awesome.
And that was one of those fun things, We're on camera and he's drawing take after take. We're designing something together. But what he's really doing is writing me little love notes. So I can see it in the camera couldn't. So I have all these little love notes from Todd McFarlane. So he's awesome.
He is great.
That's one of the really cool things about the show. I like meeting just Joe Schmo, but every once in a while getting to work with somebody that talented and just an awesome person it's like I get to be the super fan.
All right, now speaking of that, your current man-at-arms is Art of War.
Yeah.
And that's with Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
What's that like? I've heard nothing but good things about this guy.
Is the sweetest badass you'll ever meet.
Okay,
I don't know how else to... I really don't know. I mean...
He's always portrayed as this bigger-than-life bad guy.
Yeah,
or just...
He's a smaller guy. He's old. Yeah. You don't realize how old he is. So little things like we're kind of teaching him how to use the sword before we go on a take, and he's like, "Give it to me," and cuts a tatami mat perfectly, and we're all just like,
"All right."
Well, have you done this before? He's like, "No, but I use machetes all the time." And it's true. I mean, he's a total badass, sweetest guy. Once again. My daughter was there on set and visited, and he picked her up, talked to her about how he was in Spy Kids. She's too young for Spy Kids, but you know what I mean? Total sweetheart. And one thing you might not know, he's a wealth of knowledge on the film industry.
Is he really?
Especially old John
Well, he's
Wayne
been about
stuff.
everything, right?
I mean, but old films, he'll tell you everything. Boom, who was the villain in this? Who co-starred in it next to who was the girl? From spaghetti westerns to current films. He was a wealth of knowledge.
That's
it was
awesome.
really fun working with him. And at the same time, I got to be on film for our Japanese episode with Robert Rodriguez.
Oh, wow.
So,
okay.
I don't...
Yeah.
Enough said. His work is just awesome.
Right.
So, getting to meet him... It was like we met him and then we're right on camera and had to act as if we were on the same level. It's like...
Right.
Robert Rodriguez. He's a tall guy, by the way, and you probably noticed I'm not all that big myself, so it's like, Robert Rodriguez. But he was totally cool, totally down to earth, loved what we did, didn't, you know, it was just an honor to be able to work with everybody on that. And the whole El Rey crew, just fun as hell. Skip was our, you know, one of the producer guys that came out from El Rey. He's the guy who told Mel Gibson to scream freedom. Dude, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when when I found that out from our DP, Jake Towney, I walk up to Skip. I was like, Skip, is there anything you want me to say? You know, right. You know what I mean? And he'd be like, no, just do what you do and just keep it simple. And I would totally listen to everything he had. This guy, he's legit, you know. So, you know, we work with a very, very professional crew on the YouTube series. Mm-hmm. But it was really cool to have some fresh input from some guys that have been around the industry for a very long time. Right. Because, you know, everybody on the YouTube, from the editors all the way up, you know, the gaffers, everything, they've all, you know, they work on House of Cards, they worked on Veep, like they're TV grade people. But like I said, just to work with someone like Robert Rodriguez and those people that he trusted to be on the show was
pretty impressive.
It was awesome. Like,
That's great.
Can't wait to do it again.
Now, speaking of, you know, meeting these individuals that are like, for a lot of people would be like, that would be their ultimate like thing.
Oh yeah.
What has been your big I don't know how to say like biggest geek out moment where you met somebody because of this opportunity that life has given you, and you just were like,
I mean, Robert Rodriguez is pretty high up there, but we did a set of weapons for the game For Honor.
Okay.
And we did the demo out in L.A., and we did that with Mark Dacascos.
Okay.
I grew up watching all those '90s ninja movies, and he was like he was also the chairman on the Chef,
Iron Chef.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like meeting Mark Dacascos, and he was once again super humble, right. Ultimate professional, great martial artist. Getting to meet him was just like, and I walk on set and they're filming and they're just like just jumping. I'm just like, what? It's Mark Dacascos. Like, it was just awesome. I loved a lot of the stuff he did. And
wasn't he in Brotherhood of the Wolf?
Yes.
That is one of my favorite movies.
He's totally bad. And he was totally cool, totally humble, and like delivered his lines like boom, boom. I mean, he would see it and deliver it perfectly. And the director would be like, cut him. He'd go, I think I could do it better. And everybody on set was like, you can't do any better. And he's like,
it's really perfect.
Yeah, he was just fantastic. We had a huge long katana that we made, a big crazy one that's really awkward to use. And he's a martial artist, but that doesn't mean he's a weapons professional.
Right.
So he kind of like asked us, you know, how to use it, and he picked it up like that. Once again, I'm teaching this person that I've idolized and has been a martial artist, you know, for 35, 40 years, how to swing a sword. It was like, so that was definitely one of those moments. But I mean, I don't get starstruck. I don't really.
I'm going to check the chat real quick. I feel like we might have some people in here that might have some questions for you. If you guys have any questions for Matt, please, and you're in the chat, please ask them. If we do not get to them during the episode, we'll absolutely get to them in the chat post to answer as many, if not all, questions.
Yeah, I tend to ramble a little bit.
Got a guy here, Christian from Denmark, says hi.
Hi, Christian. How you doing, man?
Let's see how else we got. I love been watching The Man at Arms Reforged. Who doesn't? Todd McFarlane is a great dude. That's coming from Josh, the boss here, my boss.
Todd McFarlane's awesome, man. And he does awesome live videos too of sketching and stuff, and teaches you how to do it step by step.
Awesome. You got some love coming from Sweden. Ratchet Kubon Waden. Everybody loves Jeff Rare. Natasha's in there. All right, so Natasha. There's no questions right now, but if you guys have any questions, just let us know and put them in there. And we'll answer them. If not on the show, we'll get them in the chat. Cool. So that's one of the things that I love about being able to sit here with you and others that we've had on the Wow Factors. These stories are amazing, the behind the scenes things.
Sure.
But I want to go a little deeper behind the scenes. I want to get to know, and I'm sure people out there who aren't on your Twitch. Yeah. Let's find out a little bit more about Matt. Now, you mentioned earlier that you went to school and did all this computer stuff, and you studied a lot of CAD design.
Sure.
Stuff. How does that, Matt, help you with what you're doing today?
Well, I gotta be honest. I did all the AutoCAD and just I thought I'd be an architect or an engineer, so I kind of did all the architecture stuff and engineering things, all the classes I could take. Went to local college, took as many of those classes as I could again, and then went right into sword making, and didn't really think I'd ever use it, honestly. Like, the design, sure, like, you get an eye for design, you can design anything.
Right.
I mean, I could go draw a car for you and design a pretty nice one, but we got a CNC plasma cutter. Actually, we shared a shop with a guy who bought a CNC plasma cutter right when they started being a thing. You actually could afford one under like $1 million. And immediately, I asked him, like, what drawings, how do you import? He's like, well, I use AutoCAD. And I was like,
what?
So I immediately, my mind just went crazy, and I started being able to, instead of just sketching something and then having to cut it with a hand torch, I could do these elaborate designs. And realize I didn't really think about it, but I have a mind for patterning. Like, I can see, say, like a Scottish basket hilt.
Okay.
I saw that as a pattern, how it would need to be flat before you form it.
Right.
And just freehanded it in my mind, and boom, now we're making Scottish basket hilts. That was always something we always wanted to make, but we never made them, except kind of some rudimentary ones, just because you're going to spend too much time on it, you're not going to make any money on it, and you have to charge $5,000 for one. So we found a way to really take our business to the next level, using stuff that I had filed away that I would never use it again.
Right.
So that was really cool, and I still use it to the day. I mean, this morning and yesterday, John Mitchell and I were going over all our axe designs and redesigning them to have a whole bunch laser cut, so we can start making some more axes again. So
yeah, I saw recently you had posted up that you guys spent like a couple of days and just built a bunch of axes.
Yeah.
And I love axes, by the way. Not as much as I love the sword. So I love this more.
No, I mean, that's how I kind of skipped over that. But like, when I got started with Carrie, one of the first things I did before I did swords is I made a lot of crazy fantasy axes that everybody at the shop thought I was insane, that I was doing these axes with big cutouts and big, huge back spikes. Right. But they would fly. I mean, the Ren Fair would open and they would be gone. Like, our main customers would be like, oh, what is this? So then I kind of got known for a few years as the axe guy. So that's kind of cool. I have a fond place in my heart for axes, yeah.
Now, I mentioned Twitch.
Yeah.
Now, you are, like, ramping up on this thing, on this platform, on social media. You're always posting up. Now, what's going on there? What's your relationship with that?
For me, almost as long as I've devoted my life to making swords, I've been a gamer.
Okay.
With the show, we have to show a lot of process on Man-at-Arms, and you don't really ever really get to know us unless you're really paying attention. You get to see some little flares here and there. Me and Ilya like act a fool every once in a while, or if you don't get to come out to conventions, you don't really know the other side of us. So I decided I was going to start streaming some of my video game stuff on Twitch, and I've gotten a decent response. I haven't really put it out there that much. I kind of keep it on my personal stuff. I don't really take huge. I don't want to like capitalize on my fame too much. I want people to find me kind of organically. Jig's up now. I guess you're gonna find me. But I named it Stalkertron. That's always been my gaming handle. I got into the Cybertron army when I was 15 years old. It was a Transformers-based clan. It's the longest existing clan that's never taken a break for first-person shooters. Now we play all kinds of different stuff. But it was it started in Doom, if that gives you any kind of reference.
Yeah.
So back then, like, gaming clans all had a theme. So our theme was Transformers. The guys that ran it asked you to put a Tron at the end of your name. I used to always play Stalker, Stagmer, Stalker, kind of similar words. So then I put Stalker, Tron, and it stuck. So my Twitch is twitch.tv/StalkerTron. Come out, check me out, gaming. I encourage people to ask me all kinds of different questions during it, but for the most part, you kind of get to see raw me. And
and
I get pissed sometimes.
I jumped on and watched it just the other night.
I get angry. My friends are really good people because I yell a lot and pretty animated at times. Mm-hmm. And one of the really special things about my life is now this isn't just something that I like to do. This is something that my fiance Natasha, Cannon Doll X, loves to do it as well. She streams right next to me. We play PUBG together. We play Overwatch together. She just started playing League of Legends, so we'll be playing that together some.
Nice.
So and while we're playing side by side on computers, our 13-year-olds behind us playing Overwatch on the PS4. So, you know, our whole family, we're all gamers. So it's just been a great opportunity. If you want to come out and just see me and talk to me, come check out the Twitch. You're going to get a much more, I mean, I'll talk to you about whatever while I'm gaming. I don't care. And, yeah, it's a passion that I've had that I say during the Man at Arms episodes, like, hey, I'm a big fan of this because I play this game, like the Warframe episode that just came out. I play Warframe. Not as much as my friend Virus wants me to play. That's my Swedish buddy I game with, but I play some Warframe, and we did the Hate that just came out on Monday, a big scythe. That was our first scythe we built. And I mentioned that I played through the episode, but it doesn't, you know, people sometimes don't believe you.
Sure.
So.
Well, I believe you.
Yeah,
I logged in and watched you play the other day.
Yeah.
I think you're playing No Man's Land?
I think it was PUBG.
Okay.
Players Unknown.
Players Unknown, yes, that's what it was.
Yeah.
My son this weekend was telling me about this No Man's Land game or whatever.
Oh, that one's good too. Yeah.
And it's a first-person shooter type
First-person shooter, battle royale, so
Okay.
like 100 people drop on an island. You don't have any things. You got to pick up items, and zone decreases, and you got to win.
You got to win.
You got to win.
But I'll tell you what, when he's getting lit up,
I don't like it.
you don't like it.
No, I'll
He lets you know.
I will. But yeah, that's just a great opportunity for people to come and just kind of see the other side. Like, I'm not all serious. Like, oh, I'm gonna grind this blade the best I can ever do it. Like, I'm vulnerable. I lose a lot. I lose more than I win. But don't get me wrong, we win plenty.
Now, again, wanting to get to know Matt more, but still, you know, keeping it in the arena of what you're doing. What is the biggest fear or injury you've ever had in regards to where you work? I mean, that looks like there's the potential for some hazards.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta be honest. I've been really, really lucky. Okay. I haven't gotten too badly hit. Now, in the early days when we were still in Oella, I had a 36 grip belt snap on me.
Okay.
And it's going around at, you know, probably 2,300 RPMs or so, and it bam, 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 bam. We're talking cement on paper hitting you, and I got a pretty bad case of road rash, and that was a rude awakening. You get burns on your hands. If you look at my hands, I got little scratches and burns all over them all the time.
Right.
You kind of just develop a higher threshold for pain. Like, that stuff doesn't bother me so much. You know, little things you wear down, like my hands hurt all the time. I'm using arthritic cream at home, especially because I'm gaming and doing all that. So, you know, little things like that. I've seen some bad things happen here and there, dislocations of fingers, stuff like that. But you have a huge... I mean, if something goes wrong, it's usually really bad.
Right.
So we've been lucky to not have much of that. Like, things can get caught in the buffers. I saw Kerry get smacked in the chest once where he was wire wheeling a steel hafted axe, and it caught in the buffer and came out and smacked him. If it had been the axe in and not the handle in, I probably would be talking to him and, you know, about him in the past tense because it hit him that hard. I mean, when the look on his eyes, he held his chest. He thought he just had some bruised ribs and he got off lucky, and that's the worst I've seen.
Okay.
But yeah, you could.
And not that we wish anything to happen, but because I'll tell you, one of the things that I was so impressed with when I was able to come out to your show, and when you guys made the sword here, was the level of just awareness.
Yeah.
You know, walk here, don't walk here. That's too close to this. Everybody's got goggles on when they're doing their things, gloves, the aprons, and I'm guessing that Kerry, through all the years, he ensures that everybody knows the level of safety that has to be, and respect to all the machinery and gear you guys use before they even get to it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to respect everything. Don't get me wrong. We probably take things for granted and do some stupid things here and there. Because we're so familiar and comfortable with things, sometimes you need to check yourself. But that's one of the really nice things about working with almost the same people on the film crew, because they have to be just as aware.
Absolutely.
A belt could snap, a blade could fly, a spark. We had little minor incidents here and there, luckily, that could be bad. But, you know, for the most part, we get lucky. And it definitely has, I mean, call it God, call it luck, call it whatever you want it. We're blessed that nothing really bad has happened to anyone, because it certainly can. Absolutely.
Now, pop culture, fandoms, and everything like that, you kind of touched on some of them, video games, and you like Marvel, DC, you like the comic book stuff. Where did your fandom start? You mentioned the video games, but where did it truly start? As far as when you think pop culture geek, and what's your geek? Where did it all start at?
Oh, I mean, there's one, and then there's really far away second, third, fourth places. Sure. But my first love has always been Star Wars.
Okay.
I watched Star Wars when I was in diapers, and I asked for it all the time. I mean, if Carrie was here, he'd be saying Drook. I couldn't say Luke. I said Drook. I wanted to watch Star Wars. I watched it every day, multiple times a day as a kid. Still, it's my favorite bedtime story. If I can't go to sleep, I put on some Star Wars and I'm out. I love it. And that's not because I'm bored of it. That's just because that's my familiar, comfortable story. So my number one love is always going to be Star Wars. And everything Star Wars. I don't care. I mean, I watch the prequels. I don't care what people complain about it. I love it. In fact, I changed hats right before I came in here. I had my Mandalorian thing. So
nice.
I do a lot. I'm kind of like an honorary member of the Mandalorian mercs around here, the local clan Kiramord. So,
those guys.
Yeah, that's me. That's Katsucon, I believe, 2 years ago. That's my first round of that armor that I made, all in metal. So I made the helmet. I made helmet in steel. The plates are all in aluminum. The shoulders are steel. I just wanted to do something cool. Not too many. A lot of those guys do the cosplay kind of warbler stuff, but I really wanted to make one in steel. And so Star Wars.
But that has to be kind of heavy though, if it's all steel. Yeah.
It's heavy. It's heavy, but you know what? It's real.
Yeah,
and it's kind of my thing. I'd still take the helmet and I slam it, and those guys are all like their helmets are fragile. I to put the battle damage in the side of that helmet, I hit it with a hammer. I shot it with a flintlock. You know what I mean?
Jesus.
So it has real battle damage, and I took videos of that stuff. So
yes.
But
So you had to like walking through our offices here. Coming in.
Dude, walking through your offices. This place is awesome. If you can come here, and I highly suggest it. If you're a celebrity guest or whatever, get here, because I walked in and immediately did my Facebook video in their front lobby with all the big giant sculptures and stuff. It's so cool.
We're all huge Star Wars fans as well. Yeah. I think that it literally can be the start for a lot of people, especially in our generation. Yeah. Star Wars is where it started for us, and from there, the world of pop culture opened up.
And then X-Men, huge X-Men fan as a kid. The comic books, but the TV show, the original '90s cartoon, loved that. In sixth grade, I came from private schools into public schools, and in sixth grade, I went to Arbutus Middle School. It's local here. Didn't really have any friends. I met my good friend Chris Newman back then, who just had a love for comic books. He started with X-Men and then got me into Gotham Knights back then. I don't know if you're familiar with that series. So we read that together. We had like a little clique where everybody had their little side name, like that we called each other from different comics, and
Well, you can't say that and not.
I was Logan. I'm not gonna lie. I loved Wolverine. I loved it from day one, and I'm so. You can say what you want about the X-Men movie franchise, love it or hate it, but I've loved to watch Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, and I hope if he ever chooses to do it again, I'll be there to watch it again. Logan was just amazing.
I agree.
I loved it. People say maybe he's too tall for that role, whatever. He did a great version. I loved it.
Yeah, I think he, as far as the movie franchises, he is Wolverine.
He always will be. It'll be hard to watch someone else.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking Daniel Radcliffe as a possible up and coming.
I'm sure he.
I saw some pictures.
Yeah.
Of him where he's like shredded up, and it's like, okay,
hey,
as a younger Wolverine.
Fine by me. Yeah, let's do it. I don't want Wolverine to stop just because Hugh's not going to do it anymore. But
we just showed your cosplay up there.
That was my first cosplay I ever did, guys.
Okay.
I was at Anime USA a couple years ago.
I like the original yellow.
You can't really see that because my glove's in the way, but this is the first time I had seen my chin. I cut it real low here, so I kind of had the chops that stopped with no hair here. My girlfriend wasn't so happy about that, seeing my chin, because I don't have much of a chin. It was kind of... But yeah, that was my first real... I've done costumes for Halloween and different things, but that was my first real cosplay. I kind of did a mix between, the first Wolverine movie where he had the leather jacket on and kind of the old school cowl. And I made my gloves, and you can't see it there, but I had like logos that I CNC cut and then put it on there. I joked around because I was really skinny. I'm still kind of skinny, except in some places, but I called myself the anorexic Wolverine. But hey, that's the beautiful thing about cosplay. It's really fun to see people that have the same physique as your characters, but that's not what it's all about.
No.
it's an escape for these people to do that. Like that was I was embarrassed. I was going up to people and here I am, this guy that's on TV, and I was embarrassed. Went up to this girl that was dressed as Rogue. Hey, can I have my picture with you?
Right.
Because I was that kid too. Like I was kind of a little bit of an outcast myself. It wasn't always cool to be a nerd. It's really we're living in like the golden age of nerdom.
This is like the Renaissance for us.
Yeah, it is. It's great. But in cosplay, these people who might not ever go outside, get to dress up like they're so. It's just a great outlet for them to gain confidence. And you might see, like on Saturday at a convention, I might meet somebody and they might say how much they're a fan, but they're like really timid. They don't really want to talk, and they might not have said anything if I didn't approach them. And then on Sunday, I see them dressed up as Deadpool. It might be the crappiest Deadpool you ever saw, but they got a boombox and they're dancing in front of 100 people out in the lobby.
Right.
Because they got this sudden boost of confidence because they're not them anymore. Right. They're Deadpool.
It's absolutely a great escape.
It is, and it's amazing to see just how the psyche of people change. I mean, if I was a mentor or something for somebody that was really closed off, I would make them cosplay and get out there and do it because it's just a phenomenal outlet.
Absolutely, I absolutely agree with that, and you can see that a lot too if you follow any of the social media that people are that are in the cosplay community, dropping that information. There will be like, what. Before I started cosplaying, I had two people I could call friends. Now I have hundreds.
Yeah.
And
same thing with us.
Yeah.
When we did Katsucon our first year, we didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, we knew some people. Like I knew, like Bill, who's working with us now, was the security guard there, but like we didn't know people. Mm-hmm. And then we went from Katsucon to Otakon, 6 months later, and people that we had met came up to us and hugged us like, great to see you again. I'm following you on social media. It was great to see your kid, blah blah blah. And it's like you don't realize how quickly those people just let you in. Like, sure, there's the elitists in the cosplay community that that may not let you in, but for the most part, phenomenal group of people, whether they're professionals or they're just somebody knitting a little something and having a good time. Yeah. One of my favorite costumes I've ever seen was Diva from Overwatch. When Overwatch didn't even come out yet, it was just kind of in beta testing. It was just a cardboard box dressed like a mech, and she was having the time of her life, and it was awesome. So
I love it. Yeah. The other thing is like we talked about. The episodes and all the swords you made. What has been like you personally your favorite build?
Man, well, that's really hard to answer. One of my favorite builds to me was one that I really wasn't a part of much.
Okay.
And that was the Hylian shield from Zelda. I'm a huge Zelda fan. I played more hours, and I'm talking original Zelda, Nintendo. I played that every morning before school. My friend would come over before we went to the bus stop. 10 or 15 minutes, we'd play. We'd come home, play it. I love Zelda. I just love those games. And the newer games are cool too, but I'll always have more of a fond memory of the older games. Ilya made most of that shield, but I was there to help. Seeing that thing in metal was phenomenal.
Okay.
It just, before we painted it, it was even cooler. Like, I didn't really want to paint it because it was so cool, and just metal was like, wow. Because you see some copies out there in plastic here and there, but I've never seen a metal one. And it was a really, really, it was one of those things where I was like, like I came around the corner when he had just kind of pulled it out of the heat treat, and I was like, oh my God, it's awesome.
How heavy was that thing?
It was real heavy.
I bet.
It was awesome, and he heat treated it, so we shot it with real arrows in the demo. We didn't fake that, so it was fun. But I have to say, the one that really was a real turning point for the whole show, and me as a craftsman or artist, was the scissor blade from Kill la Kill. I don't know if you've seen that. We made it's basically a giant scissor, half of a scissor. Right. And, like, you put two of them together, you could have a scissor. And they asked us to make it for a couple seasons, but it was a real simple shape. So, like, Carrie and I were always like, no, like, well, we're not going to do a scissor blade. We're just going to plasma cut that, whatever. But Ilya came up with a brilliant idea to forge it out of a whole lot of scissors. Forge the scissors together and make this blade. And we had never tried it. We didn't ever really. That's before he was working with Bloom Steel and Japanese Steel, so we really didn't ever do anything like that. So we took a big risk and really learned to push the envelope. And like I said before, sometimes it's not what you make, but how you get there.
Right.
That was where we kind of started thinking that way, and saying, hey, we don't need to CNC these builds. We can forge a lot of them and really pushed our skills. And back then, Ilya, he was just an armorer.
Right.
Like, he didn't forge blades. So, like, now he's like the main sword forging, smith in the shop, because that kind of just sent him on a path.
All right.
And so that was amazing. I mean, I could give you so many answers. I mean, I love the Optimus Prime sword just because of the scale of it. The Great Sword of Artorias was awesome. Kill Bill was fantastic. That's the first time we made like a real legit katana out of real smelted steel that we did, and we did that on the timeline that we normally do.
Wow.
So, and it was our first really long episode. That could have been a TV show in its own. So,
nice.
And everybody on that stepped up, from the editor. The editor got the Japanese books we told him to get just so we would have the right reference Japanese names for each thing. It's amazing. So, it's really hard to pick one.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I was really hoping that you'd pick this one.
Well, that's super fan builds. That's different.
So for those of you that didn't know, I did have an opportunity to go on a show called Super Fan Builds, where Matt and his brother and everybody and Ilya and everybody came together and made the Conan Atlantean sword for me.
Yeah.
It was possibly one of the greatest things in my life.
Sure.
Outside of my kids are absolutely the greatest. But being able to see this and have you guys make it was just the bee's knees for me.
Yeah, it was awesome for us. I mean, who didn't grow up loving Conan? I mean, I certainly did. Red Sonja, all the time period, all that stuff, loved it. And we've been wanting to make a Conan sword on the show, on Man at Arms, for a while. And when James Wade approached us about doing a Super Fan Builds episode, this was like, they're like, what could we do for Conan? And I was like, well, we're not doing the new sword from the new movie.
Right.
Right. I don't like that one. I was like, but we'll do, one of the older swords. And he said this is the one he wanted. So we made it out of crucible steel. Never seen one done like that. Actually carved all the mounts ourselves. Ference did an excellent job on that. So that was a really cool experience. And like you said, we also did the Spawn X Super Fan Build.
That same time.
But let me ask you a question. Let me flip the script on you.
All right. Please,
let me be the moderator right now. What's it like? Because I've never had that experience. What's it like being recognized as the ultimate fan for something you have such a passion for, like Conan?
Okay, so when I got the phone call asking me, it really was a friend of mine who was working with your guys' with Defy Media and everybody, and is like, "Hey, Rick, you like Conan, right? I thought I remember you liking Conan." I was like, "Yeah." The first shirt I bought from this guy was the one that basically says, what is great, best in life, and has it all broke down on the shirt. And I go, yeah, it's literally, when I was in high school, there were two movies that I watched literally every day. I'd watch Vision Quest, oddly, not because I just like watching two guys roll around on a mat, but I wrestled in high school and stuff like that, and I watched Conan.
Wow.
All through high school. I mean, I watched Conan when it first came out, but through high school, it was just like, that was my thing. I had to watch it. It was just, maybe I had a man crush on Arnold Schwarzenegger, or 82 Schwarzenegger. Okay. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe. But I'm a huge fan of the fantasy genre. But my father, when I was younger, we would go to my grandfather's house, and my dad was like, hey, you need to read these. And he gave me the pulp mags.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, this is really cool. I mean, it opened my eyes up to a whole new universe, a whole new world of fantasy. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I like this stuff. Started collecting comic books, everything. I mean, if you saw my Conan collection at my house, you'd be like, what a nerd. But then you'd be like, holy crap. I mean, I've got autographs. I've got all sorts of really interesting paraphernalia. But the coming on the show and then being told that, hey, Rick, you're the ultimate Conan fan, and we want to make this for you. My girlfriend will tell you, I probably cried a little bit.
Did you?
I got a little clip.
That's
what
our goal is.
Yeah. And then when I saw it, I mean, I know, like any show, when you come in and you get the reveal, they say, say whatever you want. I didn't want to say anything. I wanted to cry. I literally wanted to cry and be like,
if we got a guy your size crying on camera, it would have been gold. Yeah, I mean, for us, you walked in and, I hadn't even seen a picture of you. I didn't even know. I was like, oh, Yeah, that's our Conan superfan, and you're spitting off the one-liners like boom, 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 quoting the movie. I was like, thank God, because I would hate to be like something this cool and have like somebody that wasn't really so you immediately, just looking at you, I knew you were the superfan, and then when you started saying all the lines and saw you with it in your hand, it was a great feeling.
Yeah,
See,
it's
like
the best.
so you get to relate to me how that is. Like you are the acknowledged superfan on something, but when we go to conventions, we meet the superfans. Essentially, there could be 100 for the same item, but they're super fans of that, and they get that same. They might not be getting the recognition on camera, but they get that same feeling that you got.
Right.
We get people crying all the time.
I have no doubts.
We get people that come up because of the item crying. They might come up and cry because they saw Ilya. All the girls love Ilya.
It's the accent.
Yeah, they're like, oh, it's my hobby. And I'll sneak around and come behind, and they won't approach. They'll stay like 20 feet away. Like, oh my God, I can't believe it's him. So I'll come up behind them and I'll like tap their shoulder and they're like, ah. I'm like, you have to go say hi now. So those moments, you don't forget them ever.
Absolutely.
Like they're awesome. I was glad that, we got to become friends, you and I, and that I got to witness you in that moment too.
Yeah, it was cool. It was one of the best,
awesome.
One of the absolute best. And so on that note, I want to make sure that I keep this thing in best condition. And I'm sure for a lot of people out there that are collectors of swords or stuff like that, they have a good knowledge of what they need to keep their swords rust free, all that stuff.
Sure.
Give me some information because
a sword like this is made out of crucible steel or roots, if you will, Damascus, anything that's porous like that after an etch, you need to keep oiled. You can use a gun oil if you go to like Bass Pro Shop or something, pick up a gun oil. That's good. If you play with it a lot, you could get away with WD-40. If you're gonna store it for a little while on either on your wall or wherever, you can actually use like a car wax.
Okay.
You just need to prevent that moisture from getting to the blade. So a car wax, you can wipe it down. So yeah, oil wax, that's good. And get, if you have a little rust spot here and there on something that's not too deep, get yourself some go to an auto parts store or a hardware store, get some 2000 grit sandpaper, and you can lightly rub it out and then re-oil it. So stuff like that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Now I know what I need to do because it does have a few spots on here.
It looks good though.
I don't use it. I just display it and I show it off every time someone comes either to the office or to the house wherever I might have it. I'll be like, "Have you seen my sword?"
Yeah, and that's one of the most requested things on the Man Arms, and we did it on Superfans instead. So there it is, folks. We really did make it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful piece there. We'll give it.
Hold it up.
There you go, right there. It's about 11.5 pounds. So it's got some heft to it.
Oh yeah, it's a big boy.
And it's sharp.
Yeah, most of the weight's just all on the bronze.
Yeah, this was, again, that just shows that you guys have put together an amazing crew of art, not just forgers and blacksmiths and stuff, but artisans.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, seeing what you guys did with the sculpt on the bronze here, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, we've worked with Ference forever. You see, I wear Torques every day. He carved these years and years ago. Kerry made this for me for my 21st birthday, so he cast them in gold. Ference, and not just Ference, but that's one of the really cool things that Kerry does even better than me is the networking. For either buying tools, he knows where to get machinery, or just networking of artists in general. Defy has come to us sometimes and said, hey, for instance, Destiny 2 is coming out. They want to know if you'll make the spacesuit or whatever. And it's well, we don't make spacesuits, but we knew exactly who to call. Right. Hey, we know this guy who works with leather. We know this guy. So, the networking is important in this business as well. Not just, I don't even mean the man-at-arms business, but the making things.
Right, and the crafters.
We pride ourselves, if we pride ourselves, in being able to make everything. But if the far-off chance is that we can't make everything, we know someone who can.
Sure.
Phone call away.
And that's, it's family.
Yeah.
It really is. And I've seen it with a post. Kerry and I have been friends on Facebook since the show, and I've seen him he travels and looks at gear all over the place.
Yeah, lately he's been up and down to Maine and back a lot of different stuff. So he went up to refurbish some swords for the Disney Aladdin and deliver some new ones. And he was like, well, I'm in New York. I might as well do this. And he knows, like I said, he's got a network of people that he talks to. You don't get up to New York and above and very often, but he knows those people and just was I encouraged him, yeah, you're up there, just do your thing. So he went everywhere. And his interests are everything from race cars to jewelry and everything between. So he did all kinds of stuff. So And I do the same thing.
Yeah.
If I'm traveling somewhere, I used to go to the Keys all the time for pirate reenacting. I do pirate reenacting. I used to go down to Fort Taylor and Key West. And when I'm down there, I'm like, hey, who's got a shop down there? I visit people's shops, do a little forging, see what they do. Some of my friends are like boat welders down there and got to visit. So, and really, that's how we ended up on Man at Arms. Is I met Natasha basically through reenacting and pirate stuff. And we got to be really good friends online and really didn't know each other in person. And I was like, hey, I really want to come out and meet you, blah, blah, blah. We both went through really bad breakups. And I reached out to Tony Swatton, the original guy in Man Arms, and said, hey, I'm going to be in L.A. soon. If you're filming, I'd love to come out and help you. He was like, yeah, why don't you come out? We're filming, season his 4th round or whatever. So I was a guest artist on the original Man at Arms and kind of met her and fell in love with her and fell in love with doing the show all at the same time. So
now you said that El Rey is where you guys are seated now, and it's on demand, so people can watch it now.
Yeah, the El Rey show. A lot of people don't get El Rey. It's a smaller network. I mean, they're blooming. They're gonna be all over. But if you don't happen to have El Rey, you can go on demand now. I believe on Verizon and Comcast and watch those episodes individually. I still have to catch up on one of them myself. I haven't seen the Zulfikar one, which is one of my favorite ones, so I haven't got to see that. So I saw the rough cuts, but I haven't got to see it. So definitely check out the episodes on El Rey now.
All right, so we do have some questions.
Oh, good.
All right, we got from Steve Musgrove. Who do you look up to outside of your shop as a smith? Like, in your network, who's someone that you respect?
This is a great example. Here's a sword that was originally made by Jody Sampson. Now, he's passed away a few years ago. But he's probably considered to be one of the best stock removal sword makers, in our time at least. So being able to recreate something that Jody Sampson once made and try to mimic his grinds and whatnot, that was a true honor. Like Todd McFarlane, he's completely outside of what I do. But he's an amazing artist. If you watch some of his Facebook Live videos, he just there's Wolverine like that quick.
Yeah. It's ridiculous.
Amazing. Wow, that's a long question. Don Fogg is probably the grandfather of knight making in this country, and love his work. I interact with people on his forums. I don't think we have time for me to fully answer that.
To get them all out there?
Yeah.
How about this? Any advice you would give to someone who's getting into let's say, the hobby or wanting to become a smith?
Sure, that's probably the most common question we get asked. If you haven't started smithing, you just want to get into it, don't buy all the fancy equipment. Don't spend thousands of dollars. Go to your local blacksmith guild. If you don't know where that is, go to Google, type in Blacksmith Guild and your zip code, and you'll find one, at least in this country. I mean, if you're watching internationally, there's also international ones all over the place. But in this country, almost every state is going to have one, or we have like 3 of them in Maryland that you can go to. Start there. There's old guys with big beards that all they want to do is share this knowledge, and there just hasn't been the hunger for it. And luckily, shows like us have been able to inspire people to do that. So go there. It's only a couple dollars a month to join a guild. You get to use their good tools and figure out if it really is for you. Because maybe it's not. It's not for everybody. I'm not as good at forging as I am blade grinding. If I did it more like Ilya wants me to, I'm sure I'd be better. But that's a great place to start. And even if you do have your own shop already, like you have a hammer and an anvil and a forge, still go join that and start. And don't start by making knives, guys. Teach yourself the generic skills first. Forge curls. Go forge everyone in your family a coat rack. Dead serious. Practice forging the same curl over and over. Practice drawing out a taper. Do all the generic stuff. Don't just try to jump in and be a sword maker, because there's a lot of things that I skipped in becoming a sword maker that I had to go back and learn that I wish I hadn't. So definitely do your blacksmith guild. That's a great place to start.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, is there anything, kind of like in closing, because we're about at our hour here, is there anything that you're doing now or that project-wise or coming up that you want to share or that you can share?
Sure. If you're local to the Maryland area or even if you're not, we're doing Anime USA in D.C. That comes up December I think it's December 10th, I think, because that's my birthday. So happy birthday, me. We'll be there. We're guests there. We have a panel. We'll be around to sign some autographs. We're not doing a big booth there, but we're doing that. And then we're doing MagFest in January. Wait, I don't know.
Yeah, it's like
we're doing all kinds of different conventions. But definitely go to the Man at Arms Facebook group, and we keep posting all the events. That's a place where you can really interact with us. I actually run that group myself, so it's not run by Defy. It's kind of unofficial, but you get to get some behind-the-scenes stuff. I was given permission to give you guys a little preview of what our next actual Reforged YouTube video is going to be. And I'm not going to say what it is, but it is a Viking-esque build, and it's a very special one where I decided to share a moment of my life that probably is one of my biggest moments that I'll ever have, and I decided to share a very personal moment on camera with you guys. So not only is the build phenomenal, but there's a really special, might make you cry kind of moment in that episode. Nice. I don't want to blow it too much, but that's coming up. And like I said, the on-demand El Rey show, definitely check that out. It's worth it. They're good shows. Danny Trejo's the host. It's real fun. And stop by my Twitch, guys. Twitch.tv/Stalkertron, and you'll either love it or hate it, but either way, you get to see a different side of me that I've devoted almost as much time in gaming as I have in making swords.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt, for coming out.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
We'd love to have you back. Maybe not in this forum again, because we got a lot of other weird stuff we do here, and I want to get you back in front of camera, maybe playing some games.
Well, dude, let's do it.
All right.
I'm all about it.
Very cool.
Thanks.
Everybody out there watching us, we really appreciate you guys tuning in, being part of our community and family here at Comic Wow. If you're a huge fan of comics, go to your local comic book shop. If you don't know where your comic shop is, go to comicshoplocator.com and put in your zip code, and it'll point you in the right direction.
Nice.
Again, we appreciate you guys watching. Have a wonderful week and an awesome weekend.
If you liked that video, make sure to subscribe. And if you're into comics, toys, and more, check out comicwow.tv for tons of content.